Hello and welcome to the Kuimangi Institute, our Q&A Conversation for Exploration series. I'm Paul Robear, the Executive Director and President of the Institute, and along with my wife, Laura Lee, the Director of Research, Education, and Outreach. And on behalf of our Board of Directors, advisors, volunteers, and supporting members, we want to thank you for joining us today. Here, we're going to continue with part 2 of our discussion with Linda Paladin, sharing the tour of the visionary art of her late husband, David Paladin. His art contains ancient and archetypal symbolism, centered not only in his Navajo roots, but more from a universal source of mystical knowledge. And some of David's visionary art encompass mythology from indigenous peoples he encountered from his early world travels, and some is shamanic in origin, and some just have its origin in the early human mythology.
Well, his work is so widely celebrated and still popular today. His acrylics, oils, sand paintings, lithographs, his experimental and multimedia work is represented worldwide in the collections of governments, corporations, museums, and private collections. So there's something that's universally resonating when these real ancient symbols and something buried so deep within all of us and the collective imagination are writ large in a piece of art.
Well, this is exciting, so let's continue.
But what an extraordinary body of visual work, as well as the words to go with it and stories.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just showing you the power of art to step across the threshold, to take the viewer on that journey as well. And I think this is, he's a popular artist to this day. And I think that this is a wonderful chance to sit down with Linda and hear the whole story.
Well, there's
the journey.
And David was one who was connecting all of us together in a healing way. I love this idea of that this multicultural understanding of art that he drew upon his own culture, both sides of the family, and then also traveled and met the shamanic traditions around the world as more inspiration. And his art kind of encapsulates something so profound and so meaningful, because we're at that crossroads still where we either have to make some choices about how we as a civilization, as humanity, going to come together and take what's within us and share that which is appropriate and that which needs to be respected. And so the pathway, obviously, I'm going to say that this reminds me of the vision of Dr. Felicitas Goodman, because she wanted to look at this cross-cultural opportunity for us to have experiences in this alternate reality. And so she looked to the European countries, she looked to the Native American, the Aboriginal, the shamanic traditions around the world. And she was saying, what do we have in common? What is it that's so meaningful here that we can grab onto, that we can own as humanity, that's not just co-opting, but simply synthesizing and understanding? And so David had to find that path from his own cultural upbringing, and then also having parents of different nationalities, of different parts, and bringing that together. And his art, I don't know how you all are, I'd love to see some more comments on it, but his art just is blowing me away in such a profound way. I mean, this is what Picasso was trying to achieve. This is what some of these artists were really shooting. You're an art history major, but this is what it's all about, is that
it's also the power of symbol to endure through time, and to strike something deep, some deep chord within us.
Let's put Brian on schedule here. Hello, Brian.
Well, hey, hello. Oh, this is just such great storytelling, Linda. And it's wonderful to hear the background of David's experiences. And Paul, you summarized it beautifully. And I feel like that's why David's work speaks to us today across time. It's very relevant to the challenges we face as we become a global unified consciousness across the world. Linda, I was just going to add that description of David's kind of embodiment of creation. It's very poetic to hear that he was 7 days floating free of his body, and it reminds me of the 7 days of creation. Actually, that's told in the Old Testament. It's really thinking of it as an embodied aspect one embodying 7 days to really take in the fullness of what this journey of humanity, of the cosmos has been. Yeah, and I just love the idea that what David wrote about the possibility that at specific times in history, we become aware of archetypes that exist within the universal consciousness, and we draw upon them regardless of culture. That's so much what I feel like the task of our generation and those younger now is about, is accessing those universal. And David's work, to me, and that's why I have this piece, Shifting Paradigms. It points the way towards that reclamation. So I just want to make that comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
But Brian, I just wanted to say what you're saying is so profound and so right on with this understanding of shifting of paradigms and that interconnectedness. And, Laura and I had the privilege of going to the Seattle Art Museum and seeing a complete retrospective of Picasso and what he was going through. In his studio, what he did is he surrounded himself with African sculptures, with indigenous sculptures as he did his artwork. That was his inspiration. That's what the stuff that he gets so much credit from came from indigenous inspiration. And like that, I see David even being more profound. I'm not putting down Picasso, but I'm just saying that I see David's bringing something to the table even deeper, even more significant, even more touching at that deepest level. That was my reaction to this.
Yes. I was going to mention Kelly Bradley had a comment earlier, and then she just referenced also the 7 sisters of the Pleiades as well, and what we're saying. But she had asked about around slide number 5, Painting the Dream, any comments about why there are blue faces in the paintings, and your thoughts on the symbolism behind some of those choices. And that was back, I think it was from the cover on Painting the Dream.
Yeah, I connect that to sometimes David talks about star people and that they can be portrayed with blue skin. And also, isn't that something in India, Brian?
Yes, both Krishna and Shiva, I believe, are portrayed with blue skin. Yeah.
The ayahuasca shamans, there's some very famous ones, but often they'll paint star people having blue skin, and we see that worldwide. And even Hildegard of Bingen, a mystic nun, when she would see certain people in her altered states, the skin would be blue. So it's a really common pattern, I would suggest, and it's a fabulous pattern, probably something to do with how we connect and upload to the cosmos, I would suggest, because we're seeing it all over the place in different traditions.
Very powerful.
Oh, thank you, Chris.
You're welcome. I have so much I could talk, and I have my curious anthropologist is going full tilt. I would love to ask you so many more follow-up questions, but we would be here forever. But anyway, thank you, Linda. This has been fabulous.
Yeah, right. And we're almost getting to the good stuff.
Oh yeah, this was just the warm up.
Yeah,
so
the good.
Hold on
yeah,
tight,
this
everybody.
is all warm up. It's part 2 that gets interesting, and it's less strain your brain. It's just look at the pictures. So, are we ready? What are we doing now, Paul?
Yeah, let's go to the second. Christine, did you want to throw out one question? You mentioned you have all kinds of them. Would you before we?
I'd rather her keep rolling. So yes,
okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Chris, and then of course Brian. Thank you so much. So let's begin part 2 of the presentation, and so let's go back to loading the slideshow where you left off.
So, Huichol vision. On a visit to Mexico, I joined the Huichol Indians in the Sierra Madre of north central Mexico on a trek and vision quest. While I was under the influence of peyote, I went into a deep trance state. During that time, I expressed a desire to create a painting inspired by my visions. My companions didn't quite understand what I meant. They thought that I wanted yarn to press onto a board covered with beeswax, which was the usual medium for their art. Instead, I felt within myself urging me to use an altered state of consciousness to get in touch with the spirits and transfer that symbolically with paint onto a flat surface. They supplied me with a masonite board and some inexpensive acrylic paints. I proceeded to create a spirit painting of a Huichol deity and gave its name to a young Huichol boy. The Huichols who were on the trek with me became very excited by seeing me work with paint instead of yarn. Although my figures were not the traditional Huichol figures, the colors and patterns that emerged appeared to interest them. During my association with the Huichols, I became recognized by them as a shaman, not only because of my ability to work under the influence of peyote in a highly creative manner, but also because I learned to achieve an altered state of consciousness without peyote, and to create shaman paintings that were relevant to them. During one of the trance states, I laid face down on a fire without being burned. Because of my ability to alter my consciousness in those ways, I was accepted by Don Carlos and some of the other Huichol medicine men as being a big holy or very powerful medicine man. The feeling of validity which came from my host had a tremendous impact upon me and is something I have treasured always. Back at my drawing board in the United States, I decided not to pursue the drug experience. However, I had learned a lot from being with them and hearing their stories. I began to put little pieces together and learn what the shamanic perspective on life was. The Huichols had pointed out to me that I could achieve the shamanic state of consciousness without the use of peyote. It didn't occur to me until 1981 that I could integrate that consciousness at any level into my career as an artist. Well, maybe the light dawns late, but it happened. Ta-da! We finally get to the color part of our black and white presentation.
Beautiful.
But just remember that David chose not to do drugs when he got home, and that because he'd gotten some pretty good ideas about ways to change his consciousness and his awareness of pain, that really began his explorations broadly and deeply. He also said something about talent that I think relates to developing his ability to consciously change his consciousness.
Yeah.
Anyway, the his attitude about art was that there was no such thing as talent. There was only commitment. So that was where David went, was, just committing himself to whatever he dug into.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I really appreciate this concept that while the plant-based medicine is so powerful and so traditional in so many cultures, that he chose within himself to also honor the fact that the trance state was widely available to him without that, without the plants medicine, and he brought home that vision and that maintained it in a natural way.
Mhm.
That's really
Yeah,
great.
maintain the connection.
Profound.
Yeah. All right. This is a the healing song. The figure on the right is the shaman manifesting as a deer spirit. Over his head is a peyote button, the source of his power and vision. On the left side is a beast containing a human figure, the patient.
Hmm.
Growing out of the beast is a sun, representing the positive aspects of the beast. The butterfly above the sun is symbolic of the patient's ability to transform. The shaman's role is to create a balance through the elements of the painting, to allow the patient to explore alternatives to the direction she or he has chosen. Okay, there's more going on here. So the shaman has in his hands the serpent, and there are little lines with dots of different colors. These represent the beneficent energies or powers of the shaman. Also, are two plant forms showing the shaman is manifesting both plant, animal, and human energies. So I'll guess these are the plant forms. Over his head is the peyote button. It's red in color and it relates to grandfather or father peyote as the source of his power. And his vision comes through an altered state of consciousness induced by the peyote.
Mm-hmm.
So this critter could be perceived as a powerful, evil spirit. We'll change our minds upcoming. So the shaman is attempting to cure or release the negative aspects of the evil spirit. In working his magic, the shaman allows the evil potential of the beast to transform itself into the beneficent power symbolized by the sun. Above the sun is a butterfly which acknowledges the total freedom of the spirit, either negative or positive, to continue using its free will after experiencing a more positive aspect as shared by the shaman with the patient. There are two serpent-like forms ending in arrow points. They are symbolic of energy called upon from the spirit world by the shaman to feed positive energy into the beast. They may be called monster slayers. There is a small red figure outlined with 3 dots over its head near the beast's nose. Okay, that's it. A shaman rubbing water very lightly on his left hand will wait for a moment and a figure of some design will appear on the palm under his little finger. When the form appears in that area, it symbolizes to the shaman that his healing or balancing painting is proceeding well. The shaman adds the symbol of the spirit form to the painting to indicate the beast's acceptance of those energies. The negative spirit is always free to accept or reject the energies the shaman shares with it. Another element in the painting is sacred plant pollen to symbolize the plant energy. It looks like red dots with green petals. So there's two that I have found. I never got to know what these two images mean. There is a star figure on the right-hand corner that symbolizes Sirius, along with Sirius's companions, these two dogs, because Sirius is connected with the dog star, or called that. And what's interesting is that they have green power lines in them representing the cosmos or stars. So these are star dogs. Within the painting, there are elements of the earth, the plants, the animals, human, sun, stars, the unknown energies, Father Peyote, the symbol of the patient, a symbol of the butterfly, which represents the freedom to evolve in whatever manner it desires. When the words bad, good, evil, or powerful are used in connection with the spirits of the shaman paintings, I am referring to the spirit force or energy that creates an imbalance with a person, object, or event. Neither I nor the shamans I've worked with recognize the concept of bad. The power is being directed to create an imbalance or a sense of stress or disease rather than exploring other potentials it, as a force or spirit, could just as easily explore. The shaman's role is to create a balance, to allow the patient's spirit to explore alternatives that it has done before. Then the spirit is released. It is not manipulated and commanded to forever remain a good spirit. It is free to determine its own direction of exploration. So in this painting, the person with the imbalance has always had a choice whether to accept the beast as a gift giver and a teacher, or to use it as a negative force by not understanding it and rejecting it. As this painting was being created, names identifying certain elements came to the artist. The monster slayers are Alili. Iriki is this guy, and Adugi is the butterfly. Wiribo is the beast. So in these future upcoming slides, David comments, I have experienced the Huichol people and the symbol system that expresses their mythology. By allowing my consciousness to float into their worldview, I can retell some of their stories I may have heard or tune into their mythical world construct. It is limited to a symbol system familiar to that consciousness. What I noticed about the paintings that David did in the Huichol style was the way that there needed to be a definite sequence to the way a piece needed to be painted. Instead of working from left to right, completing figures as he went, He painted elements scattered over the canvas, working first here and then there to maintain the dynamic balance of the creative energy that expressed itself through his paintbrush. And this is the one slide we've got that has audio. I will warn you before I turn it on. This painting starts out with the story.
Mm-hmm.
Sitting quietly, I gave it birth, and as it sprang forth from the womb of my mind, it took the form of spirit which seeks to know. Its first cry was the sound of a bird, and the question it asked was, how was it that music was given that all could know the joy of singing?
Mm-hmm.
Then out of the midst of nothing came forth a great spirit bird whose name was Waru Waru.
Yeah.
Listen, child of the earth, and I will sing you a story. It began at a time when the blue sky was bordered with the breath of the Creator and the black band of night. So there's the breath of the Creator. First beings stood upon the serpents of time yet to come, and upon the dreams of flowers yet to grow. All was silent until Karu asked in her mind why all was wrapped in silence. From now until the end of time, your name will mean song giver, and I will send my children, the Kariti, to teach you to sing. Through the voice of peyote, you will give the sounds in a sacred bowl to Yakutu, whose name will mean the singer. As she sings, one of the Kariti, whose sound is arum arum, will give the sound of the Creator's heartbeat to Patupu, the drummer. Drumming, he will give music to the other beings, the black male Wampatatu and the white female Wampatatu, who will be named those who dance. The male dancers will make music upon the rasp, and the female dancers will make music on the bull roarer. And thus it was that the story was given, and through my hands was given form. The spirals connecting the figures to the border symbolize the life passage from the dark band of night, death, and back to the magenta band, the Creator's breath. The stars are connected to the black band of night. While David was painting this image here, he pointed out this was a bull roarer. And I wasn't paying a lot of attention to what he was doing. And so I was sitting at my desk nearby, and I heard the sound coming from him. And I went, oh my goodness. And fortunately, I was able to find my cassette recorder. Back in those days, we used cassette recorders.
I remember.
And yeah. So anyway, I am going to give this a shot.
Ah,
So, of course, I'm hoping that someone might be willing to put in the chat if that um, um, are the sounds from David like the actual sounds heard by the bull roarer. The sounds speed up, slow down, and vary in tone. Can an actual bull roarer make those sounds?
ah, Chris says yes. Well,
Yeah, now the sun, moon, and standing clouds inhabited the place where dreams not yet seen were sleeping. For time longer than all times together, they remained quiet, but in their loneliness, they decided to move together. In doing so, they caused the first dream to be seen to issue out of the void. That dream became the first God of all beginnings, and that God gave to the sun a great power to bring forth flowers. To the moon and the standing clouds, he gave the colors they now wear. So this is an example of a an art market piece. It didn't have any personal significance to anybody. And Songgiver was something that I didn't talk to him about much as far as how he came up with the question of how songs began, but there it was. This is Sky Mother.
ah,
It happened that Chishwira, the Sky Mother, became lonely and crying out, she split the sky in two. Then she split herself, and the great beast of the heavens, Wirata, split in two. And life began to pour forth from their spirits, forming the stars, the moon, and the sun, as well as the first plant and the first earth being, to Sarawik, the serpent. There is always peyote, and this time it's not hard to identify where it is. Right there.
right. I want to
We're
mention I want to mention on that slide,
yes, sir.
that's really so in tune. Dr. Goodman was so fascinated by any kind of artwork and sculpture that showed two faces. She said this is a representation. She was adamant about this representation of understanding the concept of having a foot in both worlds, that we can look at this ordinary reality, but also look to the alternate reality, that we can have the simultaneous experience of having a foot in both worlds. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so
Yeah,
this
and
image is beautifully representative of that.
yeah, they also call that a Janus figure,
Yes.
I think from Greek times.
Yes. That's right.
Okay, we're Ketumba. The Lord of the animal and bird world receives a message from Wuru Wuru, the carrier of pairs and the guardian of the serpent power. The sacred peyote is connected to Wirkatumba's solar plexus, symbolizing his presence in the sacred plant. So this has got to be the peyote. And I mean, I love the horns and the way that I've seen that in some drawings from the posture sessions.
Sun's power.
In Kiruchipi, the place where it all began, the heaven spirit or God, Keep-Keep-Tu, and the ground-walking sky serpent, Kipu-Pot-Pot, place the sun's power in its center. Below the day-night dawn, Keep-Keep-Tu's brother, Apu-Kiru, scatters the sun's power onto the world which will become. Now we move into some art. This is fun. This is Pablo Kiva figures David did in 1976. And next we have the shamanized version of a Kiva painting. And the difference in the way those two pieces feel, I just have always been just impressed with the different feelings I get from these pieces.
Can I add something real quick?
Sure.
Go back to the previous slide if you don't mind.
Yep.
The central figure and the one that has the far, if you're looking at the screen, the far left, that's a star person or a Venus glyph. And that one comes out of pottery mound. And that was a very famous Kiva mural. Some of these pieces actually come out of a 1350s, 1400 AD Kiva murals from south of Albuquerque. And so some of the stuff we see in as real Kiva murals as well. And so some of that shift of feeling maybe because he is borrowing, channeling, revisiting, or whatever you want to call that, some stuff that was actually in Kiva murals from about the 1350 to 1450.
Well, thank you, Christine. I always appreciate those little comments that you provide that, of course, are very scholarly.
I can send you, when I get back to my office, I can scan some of those in Frank Hibben's book, or Polly Shasma's book, and send them to you. So I can get you some of that information for you.
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah. We're always indebted to Chris. Yeah.
Now, this is the Toponi that I was asking about, Chris. So that's what this artist has called it, and this is the way it looks. So that's for your research, perhaps.
Okay. Please show that to me again. Is it the entire figure, or what is the Toponi?
No, it's just this guy. Can you see my cursor?
Yes.
My pointer? Okay.
Yeah, I'm thinking I will have to do some research. That's even better. I love doing research, so that's going to be awesome.
All right. Well, thank you.
Yeah, exactly. That's the best.
Yeah. And the description for this piece, the central figure, the star Katsina, holds the shield of defense and the sacred badger, a symbol of fertility. The Katsina stands over the symbol of the world and the that contains the sacred twins, the yin yang of Indian cosmology. The spotted and brown serpents represent negative and positive energies. Each is balanced. The negative with a Toponi spirit bundle, and the positive with the serpent energy on the right. So there we have it. With the Kiva paintings, I begin with a particular style. And so, you can almost go back to that one. That's a particular style that David was familiar with. I've seen enough Kiva paintings in my life to relate to that specific symbol system. I may change some of the elements, much as a storyteller changes the story. But basically, it's the same story. It's still a Kiva painting with familiar designs. It's a personal interpretation using traditional symbols. When I'm doing a Kiva painting, it is more like lucid dreaming. I'm controlling the dream. It is limited to a specific symbol system, but I'm using a lot of creativity with those symbols. I remember the story and tell it in a new way with the familiar language of the Kiva symbol system. And parrots also show up in these Southwestern Kiva style. And I think they certainly relate to being long-lived, wise, and quite ornery, I'm sure. So how's this for changing the channel?
Yeah. And Chris, did you have another comment? You had your hand up.
Going back to the previous slide, if you don't mind, Linda, your
Sure.
Toponi, that looks like a water bird to me. And so this is just pure speculation on my part, but I'll look at a couple of my books. But what happens is certain water birds in the Puebloan world are really powerful. And when you think about the importance of water, you have to have your water birds, and they do bundle the water birds for rainmaking purposes. And so I'm wondering if that's a water bird with the prayer feathers with it, and it's referring to that bundle of these water birds. That's my thought at the moment.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Chris. Yeah.
This one I had kind of the image in my mind of David with antenna, like my favorite Martian, just kind of going out there into the ethers. And look what David found. This really is a very strange piece, just simply because the glyphs are different and not ordinary. The girdle of the serpent is a gaseous cloud. And it's the way that it's shaped that they call it a serpent. And the words, I mean, how did David get those words? PNIMH and PXTSAH. How do you even say them? And as David had commented, my mind wanders through a pool of concepts until I sense an attraction or affinity, which manifests in my consciousness as an idea. It forms in my mind, and I begin the process of translating the concepts into visual symbols. My goodness, that's a real remarkable feat to be able to grab these concepts and then translate them or put something down on the piece. This I did in honor of Tony Hull. I believe he's interested in manifesting. So there it is. And the word became flesh. And David muses, now I'm going back to the concepts behind the stories and developing a new imagery. I'm examining the more universal concepts, moving beyond the semantics of known symbols. By touching the concept and flowing with it, I'm creating a new language. Then in the next comment, I'm trying to move beyond limitations into a broader area of unfamiliar symbols. Granted, there are recognizable designs in the symbol paintings, such as serpents and scarabs, but the thought forms and the calligraphy seem to stand on their own. The identifiable symbols are links to this reality. The calligraphy expresses the concept one way, and the familiar symbols add to it. So it seems like the scarab beetle is a link as to what this might relate to. But this is the most unusual, unique set of calligraphic images that I've ever seen. It keeps feeling to me like a circuit board.
Thought you were going to say Paladin. I was trying to make a word out of your last name, but anyway.
Oh my, thank you. So this is perhaps the way the scarab beetle dreams itself into being. Now we're talking about word becoming flesh and what the scarab relates to. And so I looked it up, kind of gathered numerous words. Immortality, resurrection, transformation, regeneration, renewal. So there's something going on about those general concepts with this script. It was back in, like 1980, when David started painting crystals. And I was going, oh, this is so very amazing. It's not obviously Indian. And where is it that we can market these pieces?
Yeah.
Who do we know would you want to buy a crystal? Okay. About 1982, David began painting crystals and glyphs on the handmade paper that seemed to encourage his style, which reminds me that that's one of the main points of this piece. It is handmade paper, and that just really touched into something that inspired a lot of David's symbol paintings. What gallery would hang this style of art? I never heard or seen anything about gendered male and female flames. Okay, the shamanic tree of life, or axis mundi, center of the earth, universe, or cosmos, which links the shaman's consciousness with the underworld, the middle world, and the spirit realms of the upper world. On the right at the base is the female spirit flame. On the left, the male spirit flame. On the upper left is the crystal universe of consciousness. On the right is the flame of creative energy. The symbol in the circle is the sound of life being created. The 5 calligraphic figures represent the sounds of the 5 worlds or ages we have experienced as beings. The flame at the apex of the tree is symbolic of the unity of the male and female principles within the womb of the mother goddess, which continually recreates all realities, physical and spiritual. Has anybody heard of male and female spirit flames? Do you have any references, Paul?
I'll let you continue, but no,
Yeah,
I'm just
these are
speechless.
things that
Like people are saying in the chat room, they're just saying the word "wow." I mean, it's the depth of this masterclass in shamanic art just continues to blow our minds. And so we're
Hmm.
sitting back here on a journey of something I don't think any of us have had this kind of access to. We may all be art, there may be a lot of, art majors and people that are artists and everything else, but I've never had a program or a presentation like this in my life that has opened the doorway to understanding the depth of the spirit of where art can take us. So I'm just going to give you back the talking stick and let you continue.
All right. I've enlarged this part of the slide to hopefully view the sound of creation. Can everybody see it?
Yes.
Thank you. And this is a variation on the theme of a world tree. You have humankind emerging from the depths of the unknown into the middle world and into the greater world beyond. So this was an early version of the tracking our growth through this reality. This is the roots of alchemy. And wow, here's another one that I could identify salt, sulfur, and mercury as chemical symbols. And this serpent is a winged, horned serpent within the triangle within a circle. You also have something that looks like a formula, perhaps written 3 ways. And of course, there's the Hebrew symbol. And I bet there's others that could point out some other sources of origin and significance of those symbols. This glyph showed up on the corner of this piece right here. And it looked like this. And I'd gotten pissed off at David for covering up a symbol that I wasn't able to photograph. And so he knew that this was something important to me. So he warned me that this image here was going to be painted over. You can see the outline of a circle here, and there's a bit of a circle here. So anyway, this is where that glyph is. And I would really like to know, this feels like a Gothic symbol or something. And again, we have such a wonderful library of people at Cuyamonga that I'd be most interested in knowing if they have any feelings about that image. But that flame became a bird.
Ah, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes I paint something and then intentionally painting over it, conceal it.
Yes. Yes.
I know that the symbol is there, but it is hidden from view. It is a way of putting in a little more than meets the eyes.
It carries the medicine within.
Yes, yes, yes. And it's still flavoring the painting. It's just not on the surface. And Axis Mundi, of course, is available in the painting The Dream. This painting is symbolic of life and death, multiplicity and unity, and the cosmic center that lies within everyone, the world center or axis, which is everywhere at once. The tree is springing from the female principle. On the right is the moon, the female principle. This is the male principle. Below the tree is the flowering lotus from which rises a flame symbolizing feminine energy. The flame to the left, yeah, okay, here we are with more spirit flames. Okay, and the right is female, left is male.
Male.
Okay, and then at the top of the tree, a winged crystal holds the combined male and female spirits. The crystals over the sun and moon represent transformation of male, female aspects into a united spirit. The calligraphy on the upper right is symbolic of unity, while the symbols on the left relate to the multiplicity of reality as we experience it.
And it's like Chris is saying, and Christians hold that the Holy Spirit can be seen as a flame. So that would make
Oh,
sense.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but do we break it down into male and female? I'm not sure about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Hey, guys, we're down to 3 paintings left.
Oh,
Class
shucks.
will soon be dismissed.
There will be a test, though.
Yeah, yeah, come back. Okay, Guardians of the Lower World. My guess is that at some time in the distant past, a supernova, this gray orb, appeared in the northern skies. It was thought that it came from the underworld because the north is the direction of the underworld. It was unfamiliar and threatening to the people who witnessed it. Through ritual, the shamans worked to recognize it as a valid spirit, pushing it back to the underworld where it belonged. The upper world is separated by a line of clouds.
This representation of the arms in like a W position and to the side reaching up, we see this worldwide in artifacts, in cave walls, and this is one of the discussions we were having with James 2 weeks ago about this phenomena and how going all the way back to the cave paintings and understanding why is this documented. And in fact, our logo of the Institute has arms in a similar position, which we use as one of our postures. Anyway, I just wanted to add that to.
Oh, thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you. Yeah. So we've got this guy preventing them from manifesting. David says it's a battle over creation. The red figure trying to push them back from the heavens because it shouldn't manifest in the upper world. And then David comments, usually I can identify the tribe that inspires the painting. This one, I can only get the sense of an area the underworld. Well, we're going to come back to this because we may have a way of solving the question about the source of inspiration for this piece. The painting went easily for me. I had no sense of discomfort. I'm not familiar with the subject matter. I'm not sure what it is that I'm doing or why I'm doing it. It is like I've reached back further in my consciousness to come up with some rather strange images. They're almost from a different level of dreaming. It, yeah, it is as if these are underworld dream images.
Mhm.
These paintings have gotten into some unfamiliar dream areas. I wonder why. Are they connecting points? I'm bringing back some figures to the conscious level that need to be represented for some reason unknown to me. We all love a good mystery.
Ah,
This painting relates to how the upper and lower worlds create our experience of reality. The large circle in the lower part of the painting is the lower world, while the smaller circle relates to the upper world. The black figure emerging from the lower world has at his center a star, which contains the souls or life essence of the ancestors. The Midowin is the ghost of our past experiences from the animal primitive state. Also emerging from the lower world is a serpent with many colors, symbolizing the power of the ancestors that is continually being reborn. In the upper world is a clown type figure with a many colored star serpent coming out of it, and they create a balance. So we have the balance of the two serpents. The serpent of the lower world, with its many colored pollen spots, indicates that it is bringing new life, new creation. So here's new life and the established creation. The idea, the serpent of the upper world with its many colored pollen spots indicates that it is bringing new life, new creation. The clown represents the surprises that are inherent in new creations, that are inherent. Yeah. One never knows what to expect. The idea is to integrate what we know and understand now with the newer aspects of creation to keep the world in balance. The little reddish figure here is one of the ancient forms. It looks like a body with a double penis as a head. It represents early life, early ancestors before they assumed human form. I found similar images of that figure in Campbell Grant's book, The Rock Paintings of the Chumash. So this may be inspired by that area.
mhm. Wow.
The dots on the black figure's arms and body are the stars in the heavens. They also relate to the ancestors' connection to the heavenly bodies. The circular form here is the sun, and it's symbolic of the earth or the middle world experience. Things of the past are related to the underworld. The middle world is also part of that because everything we see is a part of that experience, what has gone on before us. Our experience of the ancestors and the stars belongs to the underworld.
Um,
The design on the underworld yellow snake represents the directional colors, energy patterns, memories, and power of the ancestors. They are power colors. The two serpents balance the middle world, our physical experience now. The emerging new is not as large as the experience of the past. So the new brings with it the changes that add to the underworld's experiences as they become manifest.
Yeah.
The upper world is like the dream time of creation where new things are created. The underworld is like the universal consciousness.
hmm.
Any comments before I go on?
Oh, I
You
mean,
okay?
Linda, at this
One
point,
more piece.
yeah, we could comment. We could comment for hours at a time, but let's just go. I'm just
Yes, yes,
deep
yes.
into this alternate reality of shamanic art.
Uh-huh. Well, it's a trip, isn't it?
It surely is a trip.
And you're a wonderful narrator.
um, Kumash dream images. Okay, I have problems saying Kumash and Chumash. Everybody else, I think, says Chumash, but when I asked David if the source that was inspiring this piece had could pronounce their tribal name, it came out Kumash. So I've kind of slipped into that. And of course, David was saying Chumash, Kumash.
Mhm.
Well, okay. The Chumash lived along the coastal mountains of Southern California. While I was studying at UCSB, an anthropology professor took us on a field trip to visit a cave containing Chumash paintings. When I discovered that David was interested in cave wall paintings, I took him there to see them. David traveled around quite a bit before I knew him. It seemed to me that once David was physically present with a living culture, tribe, or a ruin created by another culture, he was able to tap into their creation stories years later.
Wow.
It was about 1970 when I showed him the Chumash cave art. Perhaps that brief visit enabled him to focus upon the Chumash belief system 13 years later.
Mm.
As David painted this piece, he blew tobacco smoke on the circular dotted star homes. So we have two here. But tobacco does have significance in that piece anyway.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mm. Continue.
So together we mused about this piece. Sometimes my elicited thoughts he wouldn't have otherwise mentioned.
Mhm.
Okay, now David usually David and I have the slide projector
Mhm.
projecting the image onto the wall. And I have my cassette recorder to record what he says. And this was what we mused about. Well, he worked on that painting. Yeah, okay. David starts out saying what the painting is not. The explanation for this piece contained many comments about what it was not. It doesn't necessarily relate to the stability of the earth. It's not a ceremonial or ritual type of painting. The figures are not familiar to me. It isn't a decorative painting. It's not a typical visionary painting.
Hmm.
Is this like What's My Line? Okay, then what it might be.
Okay.
The sequence of images relates to ancestor spirits in the skies. It tells a story, but the story is spread over a long period of time, illustrating movement in the sky. The painting relates to star spirits and heavenly events. I think the purpose for doing the painting is to acknowledge these people's spirit of connectedness with the heavens. At the top left, there is a serpent form. So here we have this critter here, which we are calling a comet. And a life form in the comet comes to Earth. And then it left Earth to become the stars. A few stars aren't connected with lines to anything, yet the stars are significant. They may be associated with souls or spirits of Earth beings. The abundance of dots in some of the figures has to do with groups of stars. The dots within the stars relate to spirit homes. The spotted serpent has something to do with the movement in the sky. There are two insect figures here and here, and those had to be painted precisely. There is no link between the armed beings with a star behind one of their beings. So, the overlapping of figures relates to distance, not time. Perhaps it is the more rapid movement of some stars in contrast to other slowly moving stars. This relates to a series of events in the heavens more like star memories, not star maps. And David describes the sensations he experienced while he painted this, and this is what he says. I felt like I was dreaming while I was painting it. It is difficult for me to look at this painting without feeling confused. It's like I know something that I don't know. It didn't flow easily for me. It was more like birth pangs, like fighting myself out of a fever, trying to connect figures out of a fog. My body sense was discomforting while I was doing the painting. I felt tired, worn out, heavy. There was a burning in the occipital region in the back of my head. I felt a heavy pressure in the left and right side of the back of my head, just above the neck. My arms and the paintbrush felt heavy, yet I felt compelled to do the painting. Normally, I enjoy sharing my state of consciousness or altering it, and letting things flow. I didn't really enjoy this painting in that sense, yet I wanted to get it done. The painting makes me feel disconnected in some way. When I look at it, I want to go to sleep. And that's why I had trouble painting it. And now the almost last slide, almost. This I've think of as the message from a shaman ancestor. As I was doing this painting, I got the impression from the consciousness that I was touching that many traditions need to be brought back and included in ritual celebrations today. The ritual portrayal of the ancestors of the Chumash through shamanic art needs to be continued to preserve our awareness of our interconnectedness with the ancestors and our responsibility to creation as participants in creation. Like most American Indians, the Chumash believed that their response to creation did have an effect. They were not helpless victims of an arbitrary universe. By creating rituals and keeping the traditions, the people affirm their sense of belonging to and participating in all of creation.
Mm.
Even quantum physics is recognizing that the observer becomes the participant in scientific experiments. Humankind needs to reconnect with the forces of the heavens and of the earth and of the ancestors to restore the balance of life. When we deny our ability to respond to a keeping of the order, then our part of creating reality is weakened, and reality itself is weakened.
Mm-hmm.
And frayed. Yeah. Wow.
So I have one more before,
All
and this is my guess that this is all three are inspired by the Chumash belief system, because they've all got this little wavy hair, it shows up there and there and there.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of three-fingered figures, except for the middle one. This guy has three, but you start looking at cave wall paintings and you start seeing three fingers, So now at least we have an idea that these are ancient life forms that preceded our human form that we have today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Goodness. It really brings it alive too, doesn't it? To have the contemporary paintings of it as well as the ancient.
It's almost
Ideology.
timeless. It's even calling it contemporary makes me feel like it's a timeless element, because like we're talking about, whether you go back to the cave walls of 30,000 years ago, or you talk about David's lifespan just 30 years
Or you
ago.
talk about the shamans like the Australian Aborigines who keep
Right.
repainting
Right.
over to renew. It's a ritual just to paint.
Right.
And to keep the energy
Yeah.
activated.
So should we take down the slideshow, Linda?
Oh, okay.
You know, I just want to say how much you must miss David,
Oh yeah.
but how effectively and beautifully his art keeps him alive, and how it conveys in this homage to him, David, your husband, David, the artist, David, this wise being,
Mm-hmm.
and so much the vision coming through the art, but also his words.
Right.
So much of this eternal, beautiful art of living, art of dancing with the universe, art of embodying that dance. And what a gorgeous legacy, and how beautifully you're preserving that and sharing it with us today, Linda.
Right.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you.
You know, I mean, it's really at the foundation of our mission here is having these kinds of discussions and exchanges and explorations. You know, who needs Netflix when you have these kinds of discussions going on? You know, I mean, this is really what it's all about, Linda. And of course, you know, like I said earlier, and I wasn't joking, this is a masterclass.
Yeah.
In shamanic art. I don't think I've ever had access. I know I have never had access to this depth of understanding and connection, and taking a single artist to bring through the multitude of the worlds and connecting them all, and then having the wonderful comments by Christine as an anthropologist and say, yes, this means this, and this is her specialty, Mesoamerica, Southwest. This is what she studies, and she sees the symbology and she brings it alive and says, yes, that's what I've been trying to tell you. That's it. That's the connection. And
Raise your hands because we want to get more comments.
I want
on
to
this.
get Christine.
But I want to say just one thing. You know, think about our world today and the plethora and the cacophony of symbols and icons and myth going on. It's so, I think we're driven, and so many of us are, to go back down to bedrock and to find the first expressions, the primal, the first principles, where we all began. I want to go back to source. So tracing our way back to source in the way that David did it, in the way that our visionary experiences do it, in the way that the legacy of all the world's ancient art has given us an avenue. There's just a sacred journey to go do that, isn't it? And to commune again with those symbols and that live within us, that live in the dynamics of the unfolding of the universe, and part of that becoming. So it's just been a wonderful journey today.
Yeah.
To do that with you, Linda.
Thank you.
And David.
So there's two people I want to invite to comment. I'm going to have Christine Van Poel and Brian Tucker. So first of all, let me see. Christine, are you ready to roll? Then I'll have Brian afterwards.
I'm ready to roll.
Okay.
Yeah, have them both. I see a space right there for Brian.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. All right.
Oh, Linda, this was truly fabulous. I wish we could have got to know David personally. It's just amazing. So I've been studying shamanism for 25, 30 years, something like that. And then I've been trying to study shamanic art. That's my specialty and what I do. And there's so much that we as anthropologists, as you know, we read something or we learn something, we interview people, and then we start taking those ideas and we try to understand art, right? That's what we sometimes do. But you have I had the ability to have somebody tell you things firsthand because you're able to ask the right questions. And this is just such an enriched time for me. I learned several things, and things I always thought might be true are things that I would like to know. And I'm like, well, I kept thinking that makes perfect sense. Now, if that's true, what about this? Or did this happen? So it's just really wonderful. I was thinking about the Tarahumara that call themselves the Rahamori. There's some evidence that they may be drinking a potion of peyote. The people are going back and forth, the scholars being those people, not the Tarahumara. They know exactly what they're doing, right? But there's been a lot of debate about what exactly are they doing. And when you're reading his, what you labeled the Tarahumara vision, I'm like, that sounds a bit like peyote, but it sounds different. And then when you're reading the Huichol, which are famous for their peyote, I'm like, yeah, that sounds so peyote. But then you whiff through David and send me a zinger and say, well, maybe he doesn't need to do that. And he is doing something different, which is totally true. And I just love that play. And one of the things I was thinking about how the Tarahumara, they say, and the Huichol too, they know who's the real bona fide shaman, is that term, the real medicine person, the real knower. They can look at another person's art and say, that person's faking it. That person doesn't know what they know. And that person didn't really do the rituals. But, the Weichel were entranced with his acrylics and saying, he's onto something, he knows, which I think is just the most wonderful story I've ever heard, because that's showing that he knew things so well, and the people around him saw that he knew it so well. So he had the vocabulary right, because the Weichel speak the spirits speak in color. They do not speak in words. And he's able to paint what the spirits are saying. So the people he went and hung out with were like, you're onto something. I don't know. It's just so, I could just nitpick little things like that, and not nitpick, but I mean, just, I got my imagination, my creativity going, but also my curiosity, and wanted to know more about those little details too. So thank you very much for sharing. This is really good.
And I bet that his many collectors haven't heard the full story.
No one's heard the story like it.
today.
Very few people
Yeah.
have had this story, I can imagine.
Yeah.
So what
Absolutely. It'd be nice to go back and re-listen, because there are a couple times where I was so busy thinking and it made my curiosity go. That'd be nice to go back and listen to those sound pieces. So that would be a really wonderful contribution to all those that are curious and had our minds explode with ideas. And first time ever in one of these, I think I took 6 pages of notes, so I was busy writing too. So to be able to go back and look at the video would be helpful too. And then I'll be honest, to share with my students too, there are times where when I'm teaching my anthropology of shamanism course, there'll be some places where I say what I think is true and why I think is true. But having somebody who actually said that with their art would be such a contribution, because it's not me proposing or what I think I know, rather having somebody's first voice saying that would just be such a wonderful contribution to the world.
So now we switch the tables. So, Christine asked for permission for us to share it. Now she's asking for permission to share it with her students. And
Exactly. That's how all this rolls, right? Many, many thanks. This is fabulous. Many thanks.
Blessings. Thank you so much, Christine, for
Oh,
all
thank
of
you.
your input and support over the years. You can see Christine's on fire because this is her. This is this little coach.
Let's go. I'm like, 3.5. Let's keep going 4 more hours.
Why are we
Let's keep
ending
going.
now? It's only been 3.5 hours. Why are we
We'll say
rushing
we'll,
this?
we'll go have lunch, go have, some food, take a nap, a siesta, and then come back.
Right. Yeah.
Christine, it's so great to see you on fire with this.
Oh, thank you. This is just fascinating. And
Yeah.
I have to ask one other thing that I kept thinking about as Linda was talking with the art behind you, Brian. I need to find the magazine that has it. But many Navajo scholars talk about Navajo sand painting and Navajo rituals are calculus. There's calculus viewed in all this, and they are master mathematicians. And when I'm looking at that artwork behind your head, Brian, I'm like, that is so Navajo. That is so what the Navajo people are saying, why they are such really good at calculus and other stuff. I got chill bumps when I was doing that. I'm like, but there's things like this, everything Linda was saying that David said are these paints where I'm thinking what we now know, or what scientists or the scientific crowd by Navajos, so the Dene themselves that write on this talk about Dene science and mathematics is calculus type of thinking right behind your head. But anyway, it's just fun. I just like, whoa. So David was a visionary ahead of himself, right? I'm asking. Ahead of himself.
There's one symbol I can identify in Brian's piece, the pi symbol.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. That is.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah. No, I mean, I feel like when I see this, when I'm around it every day, it feels like there's a language that wants to speak, and I try to listen and tune in, but it's very resonant beyond words. It's hard to express.
Yeah.
Well, that leads me to another question for Linda. Did David, maybe trying to listen is the wrong approach? Maybe it's opening conscious to flow. I'm just thinking about what I'm hearing Linda say, what David did, and then that makes me wonder, how did he ever learn that? I mean, just what a brilliant thing to know is I can shift my consciousness. I don't have to have drugs. I don't have to have the drum. I don't have to have the chanting. It sounds like that he could just say, I'm going to shift my consciousness and then I'm going to paint. I mean, what an amazing thing.
Yeah.
Isn't it akin to the flow state that Mihai Csikszentmihalyi famously outlined? Because you're focused, you're concentrated, but it's a very pleasurable activity and in a depth, but you're relaxed. And I imagine that he would report, Linda, that hours go by and it felt like a few minutes. That's another indicator of the flow state. Yeah.
That's so amazing.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
And not to be repetitious, but that's why I keep coming back to this idea of the full spectrum of the human experience. That we all sort of have been told we don't need to have it. It's like that.
Or that we can't have it,
it's
or
a
that
dis-
it's unnatural to have it.
Yeah.
This is a
The
natural
disease is not
state.
having it. That's the disease, not having
Yes.
access to it. Yeah, exactly. And Brian
Yeah,
Tucker's
no, I won't be brief, but I have had an endless fascination, and Linda and I have known one another for 30 plus years.
Wow.
So, Chris, when you have a chance to visit, Linda's home is just filled with so many amazing pieces. It's quite a visual treat to be able to see the work all together and to hear these stories. So it's a wonderful experience. But
She may be tired of me. I won't want to leave.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to honor Linda again for like presenting this in our audience, our community. I felt for a while this would really stimulate the conversation and the exploration. And Paul and Laura, I so much appreciate the time that you've given, and everyone. I know it's taken a lot to be here for this length, but I feel like there's a lot of connection with the work of CI and our understanding of advancing ritual trance postures. And I feel like David has left behind, there's so many levels. Linda and I talked about the different levels of his work. This is really just still, even though it's a master class, it's an introduction. There's so many aspects to David's material that's paradoxical that will really scramble. You'll feel like the myth maker, the artist getting the sense of reality stomped out of you as you encounter this body of work. So again, it's endlessly fascinating and visually rich, but also intellectually stimulating. And I think it's right for our culture today to be encountering this material again. So I'm just excited to see it launch once again.
I was intrigued by David's writings and words and insights. They're so akin to the messages that are delivered in our trance states, that the spirits are truly speaking with us through a visionary state, through symbol, iconography, gesture, emotion, language, color. Color, we see bright, amazing, beautiful color you can't even describe. And that wisdom that comes through. And so that art is such a language for conveying that, for transporting us, for giving us that direct experience. Right. And I've always been fascinated by how the experience of an artist laying it down in art, and then the viewer, how that experience is then transmitted and relayed. And this art does that so beautifully, and accompanied especially with those words and insights. Linda just was just a 1-2 punch to really send us there. So yeah.
I think maybe it's that in if I may take on the term, but it's the medicine of the half-breed, that ability to have one's DNA explore the world and have connectedness that goes beyond, goes beyond, that can maybe bring us new medicine, new understanding, and new healing.
Well, aren't we all half-breeds? Aren't we all
Yeah,
half
we're all
Western, and
half
have
would be
these
lucky.
indigenous roots, and our job is to be liaisons and connect the dots. I think.
And you know, I mean, like we've always told our stories. I'll keep it extremely brief. But the whole idea that we found Dr. Goodman in the first place was Laura asking the question, "Where are my ancestors? Where did I come from? Where's my shamanic traditions? You know, I'm not Native American. I'm not this culture. I'm not that culture.
But I know I have these deep roots.
But
and
there's
where do
something
I
here.
find
Where
them?
is it?" And then Goodman was able to understand. Say, "Wait a minute, people, look. You know, it's there. It's there in the European art and the cave walls of France, but it's also, anyway, the whole full connectedness that we're talking about." So I come back again to David and how that multidisciplinary understanding of knowledge and how we can flow. I mean, this is at the core of everything we want to represent with this institute and what this institute needs to be about. And it goes beyond my ability and beyond Laura's ability. We just we're trying to hold court. It takes a village.
Famously.
To have that doorway
And what
open.
a great job you're doing, Linda, of keeping this alive and activated and accessible. So,
Yeah. Wow.
And this is your life too. I know how much of you must be in all this.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah, at least half of me.
There you go.
50-50.
Yeah. James Harrod is here. And
Oh,
James,
there he is.
you
I
wanna
didn't see
add
James.
to
I
it.
didn't see James. Okay.
Yeah, you're also a collector and you've read all of his writings, James, and
I'm gonna.
welcome back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll take the other two off for now. James, go ahead. Speak up and share. What's your impressions? Where are you at?
I think Linda may remember when I ordered a print of, I think it was called the Delight Makers.
Hmm.
And I look at that every single day, that painting. And to me, it's just incredible because of the different, it's gendered and not gendered. I mean, it's quite wonderful. Of course, every single painting was fantastic, and so it inspires me to keep, because I've just started doing acrylic painting a few years ago, so now I'm more inspired. You better get out there and start committing yourself more. And so that was a wonderful part of this. And of course, I had a lot of sort of more intellectual thoughts, and too many to mention, right? Because I just have a couple of minutes, but I'll just say two things. One, the white apple.
And the first one, yeah.
And the white apple, as soon as I saw it, I thought, oh, in the biblical story, it's the fall, so-called, which is really the movement into this world and all of its suffering and distress and samsara. That's from eating the apple of knowledge. And the mistake, it's not a mistake, but they didn't eat the apple of life, and which grew on the tree of life, and which is like, that's the axis mundi, that's the tree of life. And that, I think perhaps the apple, rather than being painted red or whatever, is painted white because it represents the other apple, which is the tree of life. So that's just one tiny little thought.
Oh, thank you. I mean, it's at least a little way of dealing with that blank.
James has degrees in mythology. He's had a deep study.
And the second is the painting with the scarab.
Yeah.
I thought, what a wonderful painting. And back in the days when I was reading a lot of Egyptian mythology, so in that scarab also means, there's a passage which goes something like, the scarab in the Egyptian means is Khepera, and Khepera is, it's in there's a chant that one does in I forget which of the two main books of their mythology and movement to the afterlife. There's a phrase, my mother, my becoming.
Oh, my mother.
Khepera. My mother, my becoming, Khepera. And so that's in that painting. Consciously or unconsciously, it emerges in that painting. So that's a really wonderful painting. And so I guess that's it. There's something else, but I can't remember it.
Oh, well, I really appreciate your comments. Thank you, James.
Yeah,
Linda, absolutely fantastic time seeing all these paintings and the colors. I like colors, and when I see the colors in these paintings, they're just like, wow. Every one of them is wow. Oh my, look at that.
Yeah, David wasn't afraid of using color in the muted colors of the Southwest.
Yeah, it's some vibrant colors as well.
Yeah.
So.
But you know, we were always dealing with art galleries and what it is that would please them.
Right. And I mentioned briefly a bit ago that with James' discussion, we talked about the multitude of images showing hands in this position, in a Y position, up like this, and it's over and over and over represented in David's art. So there's something that keeps coming to the human experience, going all the way back.
Yeah, we do have a lot of variants.
The Ice Age and all the way up to today. Yeah,
we'll be doing more of those.
Conscious and subconscious. Yeah. So thank you so much, James.
Thank you for that Appreciate that.
Thank you,
Who else has anything to say? Say it now. Open up your mic. Let's just have a few other
Well,
thank yous and
I want to do
comments
a, I
and
want to do
responses.
let me do a follow-up closing, and then we can have an open mic for anybody who wants to ask more questions, but I need to, because of the
Sure.
editing, I need to close it out.
Okay, you're in charge.
She wants to control
I
it.
defer to him. We have a
Linda,
car seat dance.
you are
Yeah.
amazing. We're so pleased that you've joined our community and be a part of this discussion. Of course, we honor Brian for introducing us, which we've done over and over. But today you've brought through something so powerful and so meaningful to what this Institute is about. It's that connectedness to what the ancients did with artwork and how we are interpreting it based on Goodman's work, that the artwork is encoded with ritual, that the artwork has a meaning and a power and a symbolism
And the
and a
ancestors
story,
are speaking through
and
it.
allow the speaking of the ancestors to come through.
Yeah.
But you've given us new languaging, new understanding, and new orientation to be able to understand our own story as an institute and how that all fits in. So with all of that said, I'm applauding you and saying thank you so much for today's presentation.
Thank you very much, Paul. I need the affirmation, so I'm grateful.
So speak up and say thank you. So let's have
Thank
some
you.
applause.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Linda.
Come on.
Thank you.
Yeah.